What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 134. This week, our guest is someone who, in his own words, spent more time at Midwest Whitetail than Bill Winke, which is pretty crazy to think about. He's got his own channel now where he's still putting out some of the best footage in the industry, in my opinion. He's killed numerous big, giant Iowa bucks throughout his hunting career, and almost all of them have been on camera. You guys have probably seen some of them, whether it be from Midwest Whitetail or from his own channel. He's been doing it a long time. We had a great conversation with him about that. We talked a lot about how he got started in filming, where he came up from, and then his time at Midwest, of course, what he's doing now, and what he's looking to do in the future. Is none other than Jared Mills. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this conversation. I know we did, so let's get into it. This is the Ridgehunteroutdoors podcast. Okay, so just to start off, Jared, give us, I think I actually heard this. I was just telling you I was listening to some podcast you'd been on. I think I know the answer to this, but a lot of people maybe don't, unless they listen to that same show. So let's go all the way back to when you started hunting. Who got you into it, and what did you start hunting at first? Because we've had anything from friends, grandpas, uncles, moms to, like hunting squirrels to hunting bears for the first thing. So who got you started and what did you start on?
So, I think if I'll take it one step further and just talk about just getting into the outdoors in general. Mm-hmm. My biggest influences were my dad and grandpa, and it actually wasn't hunting right away. It was running trap lines. My grandpa and my dad both grew up in times where, trapping was a little more fruitful than it is today. And they were obviously passionate about it, but I grew up getting to go run traps and, skin raccoons and muskrats and beavers and all that, and the whole process with them. So that's kind of what initially got me hooked on the outdoors in general. But I'd say my first hunting experiences were small game. I'd say primarily squirrels is what I spent the most time as a kid chasing around. A little bit of rabbit, a little bit of pheasant, that type of stuff. My grandpa and my dad weren't huge on the deer hunting side. They were more, your maybe a couple of a year, shotgun, more of the camaraderie deer camp aspect than anything else. So it wasn't until a little bit later on where I got a little more serious on the deer hunting side and kind of taught myself the game of bow hunting. And, obviously it grew from there. But yeah, those are my earliest memories, running trap lines with those guys and some small game hunting.
That was definitely a different world back then, especially when it comes to trapping. That's pretty much a lost art. I mean, there's still some guys that do it, but
it is. And I wish we had more of it. I mean, you can see that, most of the more popular animals to trap are pretty much out of hand in terms of population now, just because of the lack of trapping. But it's cool. My dad unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but my grandpa, he's still, obviously, nobody really does it for the money anymore, but he still gets out a little bit and we'll trap beavers if someone's wanting them removed from a pond or something like that. He's very, very skilled in that and still enjoys doing it time to time. So that's cool to see.
Keeps him going, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
They say everybody needs something. So I guess if I get to a certain age and I can still get out and hunt or trap, I'd be pretty happy with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's cool that if you're trapping at this day and age, it's because you love it. You're really not doing it for any other reason. It's a lot of work and time, and there's really no way to make it worth your time from a financial standpoint anymore.
No, it's costing you money. You're not making money.
Yeah, exactly.
So where's all this taking place? Did you grow up in Iowa?
I did. I would call Eastern Iowa home. I did move around a decent amount growing up, but most of it was within this area. I did live in Texas for a couple of years there, like junior high years.
That's more than moving around a little bit.
Yeah, I moved around a decent amount in Eastern Iowa, switching schools throughout elementary, but um, in seventh and eighth grade for me was Texas, and then back to Iowa for high school. I did go to college down in St. Louis, but moved back to Iowa after graduation.
Where'd you go to college in St. Louis?
Maryville University.
No, you didn't.
I did.
That's where I went to school.
Seriously?
Yeah, dead serious, man. I went to Lindenwood my freshman year, and then transferred to Maryville for my sophomore, junior, and senior years.
Dang, that's crazy.
I know.
What are the chances?
Right?
Yeah, I loved it. Maryville was I played baseball 4 years down there, and
no, you didn't.
I did. Did
That's
you?
crazy. Yeah. I played ball at Lindenwood, and then I just played club ball at Maryville. But I knew all the guys on the team, and that's wild.
Yeah, man, I love those. Those are probably the best 4 years of my life. I love being a student athlete, and just Maryville. It's grown so much since I was there too, but it still had kind of that small school feel. But you're in the area, obviously St. Louis, of a ton of opportunities. So I interned for multiple years at Rawlings right there next door to Maryville. Did a bunch of the internships around St. Louis, and so the opportunities were awesome.
What was your major?
Sport business.
Heck
management.
yes, it was. Was Jason there when you were there?
Jason Williams.
Dude, he's so awesome.
Dude, he's the man. That's crazy, And,
yeah.
So I think it was my freshman or sophomore year when he started the sport business management program.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was the program director, obviously, when I was there. What year did you graduate?
From Maryville would have been 2010.
Okay, so I graduated in 19. So you were there a little bit before me. But
yeah, definitely.
That's wild. No, you're right, though. My wife went to school at Edwardsville, and I don't know if you've been on their campus or not, but SIUE. It's huge. It's so spaced out. And then, where I went to school at Lindenwood my first year, it was basically like a glorified high school, right? So Maryville was the perfect balance because it's a fairly decent-sized campus, but it's still you're not wearing yourself out walking from the parking lot to class.
Right. Everything was right there. I lived on campus all 4 years. So it was awesome. I would pay a lot of money to do it all over again. And I wouldn't change a thing.
For sure. Was the field turf when you were there?
No, that happened shortly after.
Oh, you missed out on that.
I know, man. As a middle infielder, so
Heck
I would have appreciated the routine hops.
I played shortstop, so that was great. There was no bad hops on the turf.
Yeah, I was shortstop all 4 years as well.
So you must have been pretty good.
I was okay. Luckily I came into a situation that allowed me to start my freshman year, and I was able to play all the way through my senior year. So that was good. I wasn't good enough to go, to the next level or anything. What's crazy is when I went to Maryville, I was deciding between a couple of schools and ultimately decided on Maryville, but we were D3 my freshman and part of my I think it was after my sophomore year, we switched to D2.
Okay. That works out even better.
Yeah. Well, there was good and bad, right?
For sure.
We went from one of the, I would say, weakest D3 conferences to one of the best D2 conferences in the country. And so we got absolutely lit up my junior and senior year.
Yeah.
We went from seeing, low to mid 80s,
right?
Pitchers to almost, high mid 80s, low 90s almost every time. And so it was just a whole different ball game when we went from, made that transition. So there was good and bad there.
Yeah.
And of course, D3, there were no athletic scholarships. I fortunately had a full ride academically, so it didn't affect me as much. But when you switch to D2, there was athletic money. But of course, they're not going to waste it on us upperclassmen that are already there.
Right, you're already committed.
So yeah, we're playing. We're the starters every day in the field, and all these guys on the bench, these underclassmen are all the ones getting paid. So
Right.
it was just like, this is not right. But no, it was a lot of fun, man. I love that. Still get together with some of my teammates every now and then, and yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Crazy. I've met a handful of people that even know where Maryville is, and we're only like an hour and a half away. But yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that is crazy.
I want to get back to this point, but I do want to back up a little bit. And you mentioned you kind of started getting into bow hunting on your own. So first of all, how old were you, and do you remember your first bow?
Oh man, it was a PSE. Oh man, I don't remember the model. I would have been probably, I would say 6th grade, somewhere around there. I don't remember exactly, but it was somewhere in there, and it was obviously not real hardcore at the beginning. It was just like going out there trying to figure it out and cut my teeth on it. And man, I mean, some of the stories I could tell of those years that you just look back on, you're like, what was I doing out there?
Oh yeah.
But that's like, even to this day, I'm such an advocate for guys learning that way, guys that want to get into the sport, this next generation. Like we're living in this world. There's a wealth of information. You can watch a YouTube video on almost anything you want. And I think sometimes guys get so wrapped up in learning that way. They think that's how they have to do it. They have to watch someone that's good at it, and they got to take their advice and take, their teaching. And to me, yeah, you can take bits and pieces, but no one has your situation. And there's, to me, the more fun way to learn is to learn through your own experiences. Use your property, the deer you're hunting, let them teach you. They are your best teachers. No one else has your situation. And so I think it's not, granted there is a lot of good information out there, but I don't think it's a replacement for being out there. And even if you fail a bunch, that's part of the fun. And, I think I look back to my experience, and that's exactly how I learned. I failed over and over and over and over again. But because of that, I think I am so passionate about today. Whereas if I was, kind of shown the ropes and it was made easy pretty early on, I don't think I'd be as passionate about it as I am today.
Yeah, no doubt. Our partners at Flambeau Outdoors have some of the best solutions in the industry for your decoy and storage needs. They're focused on innovation that matters, and they build their products to last. They're probably most known for their whitetail, waterfowl, and turkey decoys, and that's for good reason. They've got a lot of quality options at great price points in each category. The Boss Buck is a personal favorite of mine in their whitetail line, and I've been throwing their Stormfront mallards in front of duck blinds for years now. Don't sleep on their storage solutions either, though. Whether it's fishing tackle, firearms, ammo, or archery equipment, they've got you covered. They just stepped up their archery storage game, too, with the new Formula bow case. It might just be the best bow case on the market, and I'm really excited to use it this season and for years to come. Make the most of your time outdoors with Flambeau. Realism that gets results. When I was probably around the same age, maybe a little bit younger than that, is when I really started hunting by myself, and I had probably the access to the best property I've ever been able to hunt, like to this day. It was mostly CRP with some fence rows and ditches running through it and big timber connecting through that property. I think it was 80 acres on what was my family ground at the time, but I had access to the other side too. So total is probably 160 acres, but mostly all CRP with some fence rows in it. And I cannot tell you how many old beam and arrows that I planted out there, missing huge bucks, does. There's one I learned, and like you're saying, I learned so many lessons on there, just 2 of them. One time I can remember there was this old dead tree that had fell down that I'd sit beside, and I see 2 deer coming up the draw through the CRP at me. And it had to have been late October, early November. There's 2 deer coming. I can see that the second deer, they're far enough away I can't see what it is, but I can tell it's like a bigger bodied deer, but I'm not thinking about anything except shooting the first thing that walks by. So The first one that walks by is a doe, obviously, and she was at 10 or 12 yards, and I missed her 3 times with all the broadheads that I had. And she had no idea what was going on. She was trying to get away from this mammoth buck that was behind her. And when he was like the typical mature, he got that sway in his neck walking up. So after I missed her, I turned and looked for the second deer, and he's like 150-inch 10-pointer, just giant deer. And he walks by at like 25 yards, and I got no arrows left because I shot everything I had at this doe. So that was like a lesson there. Hey, dummy, maybe pay attention to what's coming behind the doe. And then on the flip side of that, there was another time where, and this is a deer that a guy that is a mutual friend of me and Nate's would know, he would remember, pushing 200-inch deer, and he was following a doe towards my stand, and it was to the point I was getting up. This stand was probably 12 feet off the ground because, again, I was pretty young, but I was just so focused on him, and he was following a doe, and she was coming to my stand. And I start to stand up, and she stops, and there's stumps, and she blows, and I'm like halfway stood up and just blew the whole thing. I was paying no attention to her whatsoever, and she was looking right at me the whole time I was trying to stand up, and they both turned and ran off, and I never saw him again. So, like, I feel for what you're talking about there with learning that way, and I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it just leads to, being, I don't know, just having a different perspective on it today than if it was easy and kind of given to you in the beginning. I got one similar to your first story. I remember this is one of maybe my first or second year bow hunting. I don't remember, but it was really early on. But very similar. I was sitting on a log, just on the ground basically, and it was a year-and-a-half-old buck probably chasing a doe. And I could see them coming from a long ways. They were running at a pretty good clip, and I was set up to shoot a trail that's 10 or 15 yards away. And so I knew they were coming on that trail. So I just came to full draw and settled in on the trail where they were going to cross and tried to time it as he was running and pulled the trigger. And I mean, I'm sure that arrow was nowhere even close, but to make it worse, like similar to your story, I wasn't even smart enough to bring 3 arrows. That was the only arrow I brought. So this yearling buck's chasing this doe by, and they stop at 20 yards, and he breeds her like 20 yards away from me, and I'm sitting here without an arrow, just watching the whole thing with my bow in my lap.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's but it's the stories like that like you just look back on, and it's cool to see like how you got to this point. And so that's why I'll never back down from saying that I think your best teacher is your experience, your time in the woods.
Yeah, I always wonder about that, like, because I don't have like great properties or nothing where I can like guaranteed and go out and shoot a buck, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna at least see some deer and have a chance of seeing some nice deer all the time. And I've got a daughter now who's 3. And if we have kids in the future, I wonder about, is it better to take them and show them success early, or like let them struggle through it like I did? And I really lean way more towards just doing what my dad did for me, and like, here you go, give you a little bit of advice, and then kind of let you learn through your own struggles. I think there's probably a lot more value in that.
I do, and I struggle with that as well because my daughter's 5. And she has been all over me to get out there. Like I'm just nonstop. Like, when can I go hunt? How many days can I go till I can go hunting? That question's come up all the time, and it's been fun. Like, I'm trying to introduce her to the whole process as much as possible. She's been, she planted food plots with me on multiple farms. I let her go out and broadcast seed, and she's always with me checking trail cameras and trying to give her and appreciate when I get pictures, I'm, showing her and just giving her a taste of like the whole experience. But she's so adamant about and I've taken her to the blind a few times just to watch deer and, just kind of teach her that stuff. But, and in my head, I'm like, man, 5 is so young. Like, I wasn't even thinking about hunting at that age. But she keeps proving me wrong in terms of just like how she acts in the blind. Like, she knows when if the deer looks our way, she kind of freezes and waits for it to relax. And she does really well with that. And I bought a crossbow a few weeks ago just for her to shoot and get comfortable with and mess around with. And she can shoot that thing better than I can, hands down. Like, like no exaggeration. I mean, she hits, quarters at 30 yards.
That's
like
awesome.
routinely. So she keeps proving me wrong, and maybe she is more ready than I thought. But I do think about, because obviously we'd probably be in a blind, we'd probably be over a food plot, and so like I question, like, is that the right way to do it, or do I make it more similar to my experience? But it is a different world today for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think these kids are competing with, I mean, the hunting time is competing with a lot more activities. Kids are just busier today. And so like you kind of worry about waiting too long to get them a good experience too, could hurt you on the flip side of that. And so where I'm kind of leaning right now is, hey, if I get her out there and she kills a deer, great. But I want to make sure she knows like that's not how it will always be. Like, if as she gets older, I'll start, maybe I'll sit back 100 yards, like, okay, go, you go down there. I'll be right here watching everything. But, you make the decisions on when you can move and when you can, that type of stuff as she gets older, and just kind of, back off and but making sure you add challenge to that, because the challenge is something I think we all appreciate, and you got to make sure that that's not eliminated from this. So I don't know what the right answer is. I spent so much time thinking about it, especially with as adamant as she is about getting out there. So I don't know what the right answer is, but it's definitely fun. I can't wait for when that day comes, whether it's, this year or 3 years from now or whatever. It's a fun experience. It kind of shifts your whole perspective on hunting.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's probably parenting in general, from the little bit of experience I have had with it, is you just never really know what the right decision is.
Right, exactly. It's like getting into bow hunting. You just learn as you go.
No doubt. So we'll go back a little bit here on the timeline again. And so now you're bow hunting. When did you really start to taste some of that success? And like, was your first deer, like, what was your first deer? And then after that, what was your first buck, or was it the same?
It was the same. My first deer was, could have even been that one I flung an arrow at. I don't know. It was a year and a half old buck. And I remember, because I was, just wanting to shoot some with my bow. If it would have been a doe, that would have been fine too. But I remember that first one, and just the adrenaline rush of making a good shot and watching it fall, and just that whole experience, calling my dad, to tell him about it. So that's kind of another side note to it. It was a cool experience, kind of doing it backwards than the traditional route. I remember, some of my greatest memories are getting my dad into bow hunting after I had been doing it for a few years and started to, learn a lot more. I piqued the interest of my dad wanting to get into it. So I kind of got to be there. I was with him when he shot his first deer with a bow, and, so it was pretty cool to have that kind of perspective, even though it wasn't the traditional route, but it's something I certainly cherish, and it's a good memory for me too. But like, it was just an evolution, just a lot of failure, a lot of learning. I would say, it probably was mid high school years when I started I think I probably killed my first buck with a bow, maybe around freshman high school. And later in high school, I started getting a little bit more serious about it, but I was obviously still really busy with sports and everything, that it wasn't, and I really didn't have hardly any friends that did it. And most of my friends lived in and around Iowa City and just never really were exposed to it as much. As just, mostly sports that took up most of their time. So it was kind of something that I would do on my own when I would have free time. But, and then transitioning into college, you go away, you're away from your hunting spots. But the nice thing is baseball is spring sport, and we did have fall ball, but I would travel back to Iowa as much as possible to hunt. I don't know if it's still this way, but college didn't count for taking away residency at that time.
Right.
And so I was able to still hunt Iowa, still hunt back home every year, which was nice. And I killed a couple good bucks during those college years. And that's probably where it turned a lot more serious for me, was during that stretch.
If you guys are looking for your own piece of ground to manage and hunt, Rodney Hawkins is a guy you need to talk to. He grew up hunting and fishing in Southern Illinois, and he's now putting that love for the outdoors into selling recreational properties as a land specialist with Midwest Farm and Land. Midwest Farm and Land isn't your average real estate company. They do residential properties, but they also do a ton of recreational property sales as well. Rodney himself sold over $7 million worth of properties last year alone. They've got agents like him all over Illinois, so they're really a local company with a national reach. For more info on them, what might be available, or even getting your property listed if you're looking to get rid of one and maybe get into something else, you can contact Rodney directly at 618-925-3153, and he'll get you taken care of. He's also got his own company called RHO Outdoors that currently has products from Radix Hunting, Tactacam trail cameras, Camo Dust, and he's adding new stuff all the time. So if you're interested in any of that, go over to their Facebook page, RG Outdoors. Email them at rgoutdoors@yahoo.com. Or again, just call Rodney directly at 618-925-3153. Now you're into the college years, you're starting to have a little more success. You, again, like I did, went to school for sports business. So what were your ideas for what you wanted to do out of college? Was it like, I'm going to be a big deer slayer on TV, or like, what was your intentions with obviously maybe with something with that degree?
No, it wasn't. So I initially wanted to do something in the outdoors, and my first semester at Maryville, I was majoring in environmental science, but going through a semester of that, I quickly realized that was not up my alley. There wasn't much outdoor activity associated with that, so I quickly switched to sport business management after that. But my thoughts going, of course, I was into the hunting, but I didn't really think about it being a career or even an option for a career until my senior year. Most of the time, I was hoping to earn a good degree in the sport business world. I envisioned myself maybe working for, having goals of working for the front office of a professional sports team or something like that. I enjoyed that combination of business and sport. And so that's what I was shooting for. But fast forwarding to my senior year, I wasn't too far off of graduation. It's probably early spring, I guess, of my senior year. And, I definitely had been bitten by the hunting bug at that point, and, at least was thinking about, like, how could I take this to the next level. And Bill had recently started Midwest Whitetail at that time. And so, I decided to just reach out to him and see if there was any opportunities. And, he got back to me and said, he's like, I don't really have anything. I think I asked him specifically about an internship program or something. He's like, I don't really have anything, but why don't you drive up here to Iowa and we'll sit down and maybe we can come up with something. So I drove up and sat in his basement for a couple hours with him, and we kind of planned out this little internship program, kind of a temporary position, to see how it would work. And that's kind of where it all started. That internship, me and another kid were kind of the first official interns that year, or that summer. After I graduated, and the internship lasted about 3 months and turned into a full-time job after that.
That's crazy. So your first gig out of college was an internship that you created under Bill Winke. Did you realize at the time, like, kind of what that was?
I did. I thought it was a pretty big deal. I mean, at this point, I graduated in 2010, and Bill had started, putting the shows online in 2008. Was the first year. So I would watch it in my free time, and had a pretty good understanding of what it was. And he had a lot of the local Albia kids that would help him with filming and production. There just wasn't any official, outside interns brought in, or an actual formal internship program.
Right.
And so, it was definitely a cool opportunity. I remember just, having watched it, those were the heydays of Winke's farm and everything. There were so many big deer back then, but I just remember driving up to meet with him and driving through that country there in southern Iowa, and just being like, just awestruck, just in just how good of a whitetail country it was. Because I had never really experienced anything like that. A lot of my stuff was just small permission properties, little fingers, little ditches. So I'd never experienced that type of whitetail land. So that was probably the biggest thing for me. But then, getting into it. The other aspect is, I was coming into this internship program basically not knowing anything about what my job was going to be. Like I knew my job was going to be filming and editing. I barely knew how to turn a camera on at that point, let alone, know how to edit. And I was going into that fall as, one of Winke's cameramen. And so there's kind of the pressure of, short window, steep learning curve, just figure it out.
Life
so
of an intern, right?
Exactly. I mean, at least now it's like a lot of these interns that come in, have decent camera experience and production experience, but back then it was still so new. It just wasn't a thing. And so I just remember those long days and nights of, working all day on whatever it was, whatever projects we had going on, and back to my apartment at night and staying up all night watching tutorials on how to use Adobe Premiere Pro and how to capture footage, all this type of stuff, just trying to figure it all out, before the craziness of the fall got there. It's always fun looking back and seeing where it started.
I can't imagine the learning curve for Premiere Pro at that time, because we did our first season of a show last year, and it took me all of 12 hours to produce was the first episode 15 or 20 minutes, Nate?
Yeah.
It was like the first time I'd ever got in Premiere Pro, and that's with as user-friendly as it is now, so I can't even imagine back then.
Right. It was definitely different. There was, I remember the website that I spent the most time on, I think it was lynda.com. I think it's recently, or it's been bought out since then. It might not be even in existence, but that's where I watched all the tutorials on all this. That's where I learned how to edit.
So obviously Bill had been doing it for a while at that point, but your first experience was with filming hunts was that internship? Like you didn't film anything before that?
I had self-filmed my own stuff at a very low level. I had started, taking a handy cam with me. I actually, I bow mounted like a stabilizer bow mount, a little handy cam. It was like the Tacticam before Tacticam was a thing. It was like, a screw-on little air stabilizer. And so I was filming my hunts that way. I did have a little camera arm, but it was certainly nothing special. But that is where I would say I got my passion for filming hunts was there. It was prior to my experience as an intern for Winke. I remember, the aha moment for me was being able, all the years up to then, I loved going home and telling my dad about what I saw and sharing that story. But I distinctly remember the difference of when I started filming, you go home and actually show him, like, here's what I saw. And I remember it being such a different experience being able to show that footage as opposed to just, try to recall from memory and tell someone. It was a way different memory and way different conversation. So that's where I got my first, first hook on the filming. I think 2009, the year prior to me graduating and becoming an intern, was a year I killed a good buck on camera, self-filmed a good buck kill. So that was, that's where the actual filming started. But I mean, it was super low level, no editing, just pretty much taking a camera with you to the woods and turn it on, hoping you capture something.
Hit record, and what you got is what you got.
Exactly.
Yeah. We had Eddie Teague on 2 episodes ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he kind of talked about those early days, too, because I guess it was maybe 2010 or 11 maybe it was 2012 when he said he first got there. I don't remember exactly, but it was interesting to hear him talk about the early days and working for Bill back then. So what was that kind of like? Again, it's not the very beginning of Midwest Whitetail, but really when it started to probably take off online, right? What were those days like?
It was, the biggest thing I remember is just it was very long hours. Just we were producing. By the time I joined, in the couple of years after I joined, the pro stuff was growing. We were producing a lot of shows. Not just Winke's main stuff and that main show stuff, but a lot of regional, or at that time they were actually state specific shows. So like I worked with Eddie, produced I produced Illinois show and Iowa show, and kind of switched back and forth before it became more of a regional thing. But I remember how much time was involved, not only producing Winke stuff, when he had things going on at the farm, we had to be out there filming it, capturing it. We started producing, a TV series at that time too. So it was just like you spend a lot of hours in the field shooting content, shooting interviews, but then back at the office, a lot of late nights, just because that format, that semi-live format, was a different beast. It's not like you have all fall to just film and capture the footage, and then you edit it in the off season. It was a whole different beast. You're doing it basically in a 1-day turnaround. And so that's probably what I remember the most, is just what it took to pull that format off. Just a lot of hours, and just constantly grinding through that. And then through the fall, it's like trying to find time. The only time you have is late at night, because you're hunting morning and evening, and maybe grabbing a bite to eat midday. But it was a grind for sure. But learned a lot on the whitetail side. It was a really cool experience seeing what good deer hunting land in that country is like. It was a lot of fun. It's a good experience to look back on, and it's certainly come a long ways.
Yeah. We do semi-live, but we do it week to week. So you guys are doing a daily show. I can't even imagine trying to do that for all those different people. That's wild. But you mentioned you guys started doing TV there too. So what was the difference for you from the internet side, like production-wise, to the TV side? Obviously, there had to be some level of difference in the way you were doing it. If you guys plant food plots and you don't know who Grandpa Ray Outdoors is, you need to look him up. They specialize in providing the best nutrition for whitetail deer on your property, starting with the soil. They've got a full line of high-quality food plot seed and plant foods. With over 14 different food plot blends to choose from, you won't have any trouble finding what you're looking for. They've got fall and spring blends, corn and beans, switchgrass, liquid fertilizer, soil test kits, you name it. When it comes to planting, they've got it. They're not just about selling their products, though. They were started in 2015. John, the owner, has been in the business since 1991. So with that knowledge that he's acquired, he's going to be able to answer any questions you have about what blends would be best for your specific property. That way you can achieve the best results possible. Like us, John and his team don't believe in a cookie-cutter approach to wildlife nutrition. They're going to treat you and your situation individually. We've used tons of their seed on client properties, on our own properties, and the results have always been as good, if not better, than advertised. That's why we partnered with them in the first place. If you want to, go to grandparayOutdoors.com, use the discount code RHO Podcast. That's all lowercase, no space, and you get 5% off your entire order there. You guys need to go check them out if you care about getting the most bang for your buck when it comes to your food plots.
Yeah, so a lot of the TV stuff, that was most of the time a off-season edit. Like you're trying to finish up that TV series for a Q3 airing, Q3, Q4 airing. So you had a little bit more time to produce that, but it required shooting different interviews like spine and narration interviews to kind of move those stories along. Because the biggest difference, I think, the semi-live stuff was just how it happens. It happens. It's a little more raw. It's the hunts. Whereas the TV shows, we would pick themes. So maybe it's like, whatever, first hot doe, and we'd take 3 or 4 hunts to illustrate that point. And Bill would kind of talk through, the experiences or the lessons there, and we'd use 3 or 4 different hunts to illustrate that topic.
Okay.
And so that would be one TV episode, and we would do the TV episodes that way, so that they still had that learning aspect, but they made sense. They kind of fit together. The different hunts did.
Yeah, that's cool. That's something that I think you always find with what Winke was doing, and I think it's something that you do really well now too. Is that kind of knowledge transfer aspect of it?
Right. Yeah, he definitely always had a focus on the education. And I certainly appreciate that, and I think he still does a good job with that.
Yeah, I do too. So we're early 2010s now. You're working really hard behind the scenes. And this TV series, I guess you're talking about it being more produced, is that kind of where Chasing November maybe had its roots, or when did you guys decide to start that series?
Oh man, I can't remember when that first year of Chasing November was. So we were producing the Midwest Whitetail. I think it was called like Muddy's Midwest Whitetail. It was a TV show. They were on like the Sportsman Channel. I think, gosh, if that was 2011 and 12. I can't remember. I think Chasing November was shortly after that, maybe 14 or 15.
Okay.
Somewhere around there is when Chasing November started. And so, so 2010 was when I started. And so I worked full-time for Bill in 2010 and 11. But I also got to the point where, I had worked really hard during college too, and tried to kind of get myself ahead of the game with all the internship experiences and kind of building a good resume there. And so there's a little bit, obviously I'm still young, still trying to figure it all out. And while I was enjoying the hunting aspect, I started to think like big picture career. Like I do not want to be a video editor the rest of my life,
right?
Or
who does?
A producer. Yeah, exactly. And so I started to think like, am I wasting everything I did during college to kind of, put myself in a good position to enter the workplace and be successful there by doing something that is, more tied to my passion. But, I didn't see a clear path to creating a really good living at that point. And so I ended up in 2012, I ended up taking a job as in marketing and operations for Muddy Outdoors. It was located and very closely tied to Midwest Whitetail. But I felt like there was at least a little more obvious career path there. I enjoyed the marketing aspect, but I still got to be in the hunting realm. And so I took that job in 2012. But the key to kind of all of this and how it's kind of come full circle for me is, and I made a couple more career moves after that, but I never stopped producing for Bill. I would, even as full-time marketing operations for Muddy, I would come back home to my apartment and edit footage for Bill. I thought, I was still producing those regional shows and footage, and so pro staff would start mailing their footage directly to my apartment. I'd produce a show and upload it to the Midwest Whitetail platform. So I was kind of an independent contractor for Bill the whole way through. So Muddy, I worked there for I think 2 years. And the reason I ended up getting out of there was, is kind of along the same lines, but that was, so we're sitting like 2013, kind of the heyday of when Midwest Whitetail was doing well, but it's also when everyone started getting into the filming and the show producing, and it was kind of the heyday of like everyone and their brother is now filming a show. And so as someone in the marketing, I was fielding those phone calls all day long about, hey, we're the next big thing. We want you to sponsor. I mean, it was nonstop.
Yep.
And so like it kind of rubbed me the wrong way and put a bad taste in my mouth for like just the hunting industry in general. And like, people don't realize, I want to get in the hunting industry. I want to get hunting. Well, you work in the hunting industry, especially a company like Muddy, it eats away at your time to hunt. Like, it's the busy time of year, right? I mean, it's like, you can't spend a whole bunch of time in the tree. You can't be in a tree constantly and still do that job effectively. So
Yep.
At that point, 2013, I made the decision to take a job outside the hunting industry and try to keep, at least for a while, keep that passion, a hobby separate from my career. But again, I still continue to be an independent contractor for Bill. So I was still kind of have my foot in the door to keep editing footage and keep producing. And it was decent side income too, but more or less kind of kept me in that space as it continued to evolve. So I actually did pharmaceutical sales from 2013 to 2017. So about 4 years there where I kept hunting, somewhat as a side passion of mine, but like I said, still kept producing for Bill. And then it was almost the flip side. 2000, right around that time frame, I was getting really tired of only having 2 weeks of vacation to hunt every year. And I was like, I got to find a way to get back into the hunting industry in a role that allows me more time in the tree. I just, it just didn't, I just missed that, having more time, because you always also, got married in that time frame, and you get 2 weeks of vacation. You feel guilty when you spend all 2 weeks of it in the woods. So it's like, a week for family, or, then you're down to a week of vacation. So trying to figure out all that and how I can get back into it. And 2017 is when I came back to Midwest Whitetail full time to kind of run the operations. Bill at that time was looking for someone to kind of take over and run more of the day-to-day business. And so that's the role that I stepped back into.
Nice. Yeah, the vacation thing and feeling guilty, even if you don't, they'll usually make sure you do at some point.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
I do want to go back just a hair to what you were talking about with the industry, even just from doing the podcast and meeting people and going to shows and stuff, and being around it to the extent that we are, which is nothing like what you're talking about and where you're at. But you do see there are a ton of good people in the industry, and you can build a lot of good relationships, but there is also that, just like there is anything else, there's people out there that are just looking out for themselves, or they're just trying to make the extra dollar or make money off of somebody else's back. And if you let it, you can definitely get a bad taste in your mouth. And I can only imagine you getting beat down with that all the time, being in the position you were in. That's got to be tough. From the outside looking in, it may seem great, but like you said, once you get on the inside of it, you definitely get a little bit different perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like you said, there's good and there's bad. There's some unbelievably great people in this industry that, I'm super grateful to have got to know and become friends with. And there's others that I wish I, hadn't. But I think that's not necessarily a hunting industry. I think that's a life thing.
Yeah.
And I think, when I was younger, I was just maybe a little bit more naive to it. But as you get older, you get involved in different businesses, and, just everything that entails. Business is business. And you just encounter, people that are, like you said, looking out for themselves or whatever, want to take advantage of someone that's in a lesser position. I think it's in any industry, and if you haven't run into it, you're going to. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's inevitable, and but it's a good thing too. Like it's part of that whole learning experience that we've hit on a couple different times now. It's like you almost become thankful that you saw that and you can learn from it. And I don't want to ever treat someone like this. I don't ever want my kids to experience something like this. I mean, so there's positives and all that type of stuff, but it's just the world we live in, and unfortunately you're gonna encounter that.
Yeah, no doubt. So you said you got into pharmaceutical sales. Did you have to get another degree for that, or is that something where you just kind of learned on the job training?
Yeah, just learned on the job training. There were certain aspects to it that I could draw from experience, just business wise, and the marketing and sales at Muddy kind of helped me, give me a taste of just sales in general. But a lot of it's just relationship building.
For sure.
And a lot of sales jobs are like that. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed being in that southeast Iowa kind of quadrant. You were dealing with a lot of small town doctors and clinics, and your kind of people. So I enjoyed that. It did get tougher towards the end, as a lot of the bigger hospital systems and stuff were buying out the small clinics, and it was hard as a pharmaceutical rep to even see or get access to the doctors you wanted to talk to, even the ones you had great relationships with. They were just, these hospital systems were shutting them off. So, part of the enjoyment of that job was educating, I say small town Iowa clinics. I like it, but they are very slow to adapt to new medicines, new technology. And so I enjoyed going and actually educating the doctors and nursing staff and all that type of stuff. And actually the rewarding part was when they started using these medicines on patients and the success stories and stuff like that. That was a fun part of the job. But like I said, at the end where you couldn't even get to the doctors, that rewarding part kind of went away. And so I certainly enjoyed it less towards the end, just because you felt more like more like a delivery driver. You're just going and dropping stuff off. You never actually got to do your job.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a good experience. So I learned a lot those 4 years.
Hey everybody, I appreciate you tuning in for another episode. If you don't already, go over to Instagram and Facebook and give us a follow at Ridgehunteroutdoors. We also have a private Facebook group called Ridge Hunter Nation, where you guys can have some input on the show. You can ask us questions. You can ask upcoming guests questions. You can tell us who you want us to have on and what you want us to talk about. And on top of all that, just use it as a regular hunting group. Share your stories, your success, pictures, your failures, whatever it is. That's all at Ridge Hunter Nation on Facebook. Our website is ridgehunteroutdoors.com. That's where you're going to find more info on the consulting and management services that we provide. We also have the podcast posted on the website with some other content as well, and we have our merchandise and our food plot seed. And if you find any of that stuff that you want, make sure you use the discount code RHO pod, that's all caps, no space, and you get 10% off your entire order there. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else that lets you do so, make sure you rate and review. That helps us, and give us a follow there too. YouTube, our channel is Ridge Hunter Outdoors. You can subscribe to that, hit the notification bell so you know when everything comes out. The podcast will be posted there, as is our Fall Pursuit show, which we'll have more of coming up next season. You guys can go back and rewatch everything that we did this year. We had 10 episodes on that. We're hopefully going to do some turkey hunting this spring, and of course we'll have all our off-season content on YouTube as well. So thanks to everybody who already does follow and subscribe. If you don't, make sure you go do that. Now let's get back to the episode.
So if you think those guys would have given you 6 weeks vacation every year, would you have bailed on that?
I don't know. I think I just didn't want to have a ceiling on it. Whatever that ceiling was.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to, hunt when it made sense, and when I wanted to. So, because there was a pretty obvious career path in that world where you could become very, very successful very quickly, from a financial standpoint, kind of work your way up. And along with that comes the greater vacation and all that type of stuff. But I had enough of the corporate experience at that point. It was a good experience, learned a lot, but it was certainly, everything. When people reference corporate, it was certainly that. There's just a lot of regulations and a lot of hoops and a lot of, it just wasn't super fulfilling for me at that point.
Yeah. I met Eddie in the hospital. I'm an X-ray tech. I met him in the OR.
Okay.
And I found out what all he has to go through to try to get some time off, in his line of work. So yeah, I can imagine that it was very similar for you.
Right.
So,
I mean, I still have buddies that are doing very, very well, and they make time to hunt. They find a way to do it. But at that time, it just wasn't for me.
you were in sales. Did Jason put you guys through like some grueling sales training back in the day? Because we had to do I think it was 2 different weekends where we had to do sales training with a guy, Rob. I can't even remember his last name now, but he would come in every year to every class and do like sales training. And Jason would always say, even if you're not in sales, you're a salesman. Like you're selling yourself every day, no matter what, whether you're an actual salesman or not. Like everything's sales. So did he have something like that when you were there at that time?
I don't think he did, but I agree wholeheartedly with what he's saying there for sure. I don't remember any specific sales training at that time though, so I'm guessing that was implemented a little bit later.
Yeah, must have been. It was a big part of the program at that time. Like I said, we had some extra stuff and all that as well. But you're in that. We're working up to today. At what point were you starting to get like on the other side of the camera more often with Midwest?
I mean, I did both right from the get-go. I would be in front of the camera with some of the local guys. We'd film each other when Bill wasn't hunting or when Bill had a different cameraman on a certain hunt. We were always filming our hunts, and our footage was always being shown on the show. So right from the get-go, I would say probably from 2011 on, I was never a dedicated cameraman for anyone. I was primarily either self-filming my own hunts, or I had a cameraman, or sometimes I would partner up with someone and we'd switch off filming depending on the day. So it was pretty early on when I was in front of the camera.
Do you have a favorite hunt from those years that sticks out?
From just all the years of filming hunts?
All the years through the Midwest years. Is there like a favorite one, whether you're behind the camera or in front of it?
Man.
I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but I had to ask.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard. There's so many good ones. I don't know if I have a favorite.
It's a lot of years to comb through. How long were you there? 10 years?
I mean, technically 12 years.
Yeah.
That I was filming, 12 or 13, that I was giving my footage or utilizing my footage on the show.
Okay. So after that period ended, and we don't have to get into all that because I know you've talked about it a bunch on other different podcasts and stuff like that, but after you did leave Midwest, did you know right away that you kind of wanted to keep filming and producing and putting it out for yourself, or like what was did you have different options at that time? What were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I had some options for sure about, either joining other shows or, whatever. I didn't necessarily have any interest in that. I wanted to be able to control everything from a career standpoint. So a big picture career standpoint, I wanted to be able to make the decisions that I thought made sense, as it relates to me, my content, my preference of hunting style, what I thought was good for the industry, what I thought would be, enjoyable for viewers to watch. At that point, I obviously had a lot of experience. I've been doing this, longer. I was at Midwest Whitetail longer than Bill was at Midwest Whitetail. So
pretty good resume.
I had a pretty good grasp on just the type of content people wanted to see and how to connect with viewers and things like that. And so at that point, I wanted to have control of that. I didn't want to be in a situation where that structure was controlled by someone else, as far as, whether it was driven by money, whether it was driven by, whatever. I didn't want to be in that situation. I wanted to be able to drive the ship. I wanted to be able to control that direction. And so from that standpoint, it made the most sense to just produce my own content. The other aspect of that, of course, in this world is getting to pick and choose the people within the industry that I wanted to work with.
Yeah.
I didn't, if there was a company I didn't want to work with, I didn't have to say yes just because the money. I could pick and choose the people, behind the brands that I appreciated working with the most, and go that route. So there was just a lot of reasons why it made sense to keep control of that and do my own thing. And the only thing that I considered, and still consider to this day, is bringing other people, other like-minded people on, just for the fun aspect of it, not because I think I need supporting content or anything like that. I think people just enjoy a straightforward story, and it doesn't really get mixed up too much. So I think people like that, but just the fun aspect of working with like-minded guys or buddies, or sharing hunts and stuff like that. I've had a number of people reach out and say that they'd be all for it if I ever get to that point. So it's certainly something that I still consider. It'd be fun to build a little core group of guys that all have similar hunting styles and visions, and just do it for the right reasons. I think that would be fun, and still something I consider. It's just the challenge is just making it work for everybody. A lot of the guys say, "Hey, I don't need anything. I just want to be a part of what you're doing, and you can use my footage." But I've kind of, and some of them probably mean it and won't ever get beyond that. But a lot of times you get in that situation a few years down the road, and then it's like, well, what do I get out of this? So, and it's hard because you go into two brands. And trying to figure out, how do you distribute that money? Is a company going to pay more just because you have two people instead of one? It's just, there's a lot of decisions that go into that. Right now, it's very straightforward. I know who does all the work, and I know who gets all the rewards. So it's a very straightforward structure. But it's, like I said, it's something I've considered, and I'm open to if I ever figure out a way to make it make sense.
Yeah, we're kind of going through some of those growing pains right now, so I really understand what you're talking about. But I do feel like we have a good group of 5 guys, and it's like you're talking about, like-minded. I feel like any two of us could go sit in a tree together at any time, and like we'd get along, we'd have a good time and hunt. That's actually one thing I wanted to ask you was, of all the things that you wouldn't miss about maybe being with Midwest and like this kind of some of the stuff you hit on, I was going to ask if that's something that maybe you did miss, because obviously you're doing all the stuff yourself now, like just having that aspect of even just having another guy in the tree with you to joke around through the slow times and stuff like that. Like that's something that I really enjoy that I didn't have before we started our group, and I wondered if that's maybe something that would be in your future if you kind of looked back on kind of fondly from your years with Midwest.
Yeah, I still enjoy, being in a tree with guys every once in a while. Like this weekend, I'm heading to Kentucky for their opener, and I'll probably, spend some time in the tree with a buddy and either filming me or vice versa. So I enjoy, those periods. I get enough of that kind of sprinkled throughout the season where, I'll have a buddy in town that wants to come film or something. So I get enough of that. I thought I would miss it more than I do, to be honest. I think my perception was, and maybe, similar to an outside perception, was that it was just going to be like, completely solo. You're just in this own world. You have no camaraderie or anything.
Right.
But the reality is, like, just like I have done the whole time, like you're constantly texting, calling buddies, seeing how their hunt went. Like you still feel a part of that. Like all the buddies that I was doing it with before, I'm still doing it with now. Like still, nothing really changed there. So I feel like I still get that camaraderie aspect.
Now you just
of
don't
that.
have to do that with the ones you don't want to.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, I'm driving the ship.
Yeah, that's right.
No, but I still get that, and still get to go on recoveries when buddies kill deer, and they come and film me when I kill. So it's all that is still there. Self-filming is challenging for sure, but I've done it enough in my career to kind of understand what it is. I have the expectations of and the discipline to do it. I know there's a decent chance that I'm gonna have some missed opportunities because of the camera. It's just part of what I do. But I will say the difference in hunting by yourself compared to with a cameraman is night and day in terms of what you can get away with one person in a tree compared to two. So
no doubt.
that is one huge advantage to not having a cameraman.
Yeah, no doubt. So is your YouTube channel, is that what you're doing now? Or are you doing something on the side too? Or like, do you have another full-time gig? Or like, what's that look like for you? Have you started a new career path yet?
Not necessarily new. So yeah, primarily still the YouTube content, working with a number of brands in the industry. But what's been fun is, again, like I said, I got to be very selective with the brands I work with, and have been trying to create deeper relationships, as in helping with product development, helping with more than a surface level sponsorship. I feel like I've created some pretty good partnerships where there's just more value there, and it's more enjoyable. It feels a little more long term than some of the other deals. So I've enjoyed that, but I've also put forth effort into like I mentioned, product development, but having some of my own brands that I can control and grow. Because again, going back to our initial conversation, I enjoy the business aspect of all this. And so I've picked certain categories that I'm, passionate about and have enough knowledge about to create a product or a product line. And so a lot of that is, I'm still working on some of the final logistics. But I have a few things that will be coming out, and one of them that's already out. I'm part owner of Food Plot Seed Company, so that was a big one. I've been doing a lot of testing over the years to kind of get these blends dialed, along with a buddy of mine, and finally was able to bring all those to the market last year. So that's been a big project, but something that I can be very deeply involved with. I have a big mock scrape guy. I love mock scrapes and run a ton of them. So I have a scent line coming out. I'm hoping here in the next couple of weeks. So just find these categories that make sense for what I do, and having even more control of the business aspect of those.
Yeah, for sure. So we're at like an hour now. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Just go ahead, and for those of the listeners that I don't know why they wouldn't, but don't know where they could find you, let them know where they could find what you're doing now. And then if you want to, your seed company too, go ahead and plug them, whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the most like storytelling long form content that I put out is on YouTube. It's just my name as far as my channel. That's the best place to kind of follow along the storylines and the hunts. I do have social media, Instagram. I'm not the greatest at keeping up on there. Not the biggest fan of social media, but that is a place that I do occasionally post. But I think if guys are wanting to reach out, which I always encourage people to do, don't ever hesitate if I can help with anything. That's probably the best place to get a hold of me there. The food plot seed company is called Monster Buck. Again, I really enjoy helping guys with food plots because it can be overwhelming. There's a lot to consider depending on what you're working with. And so one of my favorite aspects of that is just helping guys get into food plotting in general, whether you have your own land or not, or whether you have equipment or not. There's usually a way to get something planted, and it's a lot of fun. Just improving properties from that standpoint. So yeah, I think that's it. I mean, like I said, I always encourage people to reach out if they want to, if I can help with anything.
Awesome. Well, keep doing what you're doing, man. I love seeing all your stuff. It's even now, like, you get some of the best footage I think that is out there, and we really appreciate it. And good luck this coming season. Good luck in Kentucky coming up with that opener, man. I hope you guys get something on the ground.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's it's crazy that September's here already. I still can't believe that. But yeah, the weather looks good. It's probably the best opening weekend weather since I've been going to Kentucky that I can remember. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully it'll be some good hunting.
Sweet. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time out of the evening to come on and talk to us, and hopefully we'll get to do it again one of these days.
Yeah, anytime, man. I appreciate the time, guys, and appreciate the invite.
Yep, for sure.